Welcome everyone with us today and taking the next hour to discuss faculty development, and in particular, looking at faculty development from an organizational lens. I'll start with introducing myself and then turn it over to my colleague to introduce herself. My name is Claudiana Colomitro. I am a white settler, and I'm joining you from the traditional lands of Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. In my role, I am the Associate Vice Principal Teaching and Learning at Queen's University. And if you see in the background, that's actually a picture that I took just last week of Queen's University, my institution. It's absolutely beautiful at this time of year. You can see the snow and the clock tower in the background. Joanne, turning it over to you to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Joanne Hamilton. I'm a faculty developer from the University of Manitoba. Welcome, as Claudiana has said, welcome to you all joining us from across a variety of time zones. It's barely sunlight where I am. I see there's a lovely sunrise out my window. I'm on Treaty 1 land, which is in Manitoba, Canada, and it's a number of different Indigenous communities across Manitoba that are the original peoples on this land. We're all snowed in. We have about 4 feet of snow on the ground where I am, and it's cold, and I'm glad to be all cozy in my home. We're all working from home still. And I hope you come with lots of questions. We're looking forward to hearing from you as we share what we found in our research on faculty development through an organizational lens and what we think the implications are for faculty development. Passing it back to you, Claudia.
Thank you. We do have some slides that we have prepared. However, this is a conversation. This is a webinar, and I'm hoping that as we share some of our thoughts and some of our research, we'll be able to hear from you and your context and some of the opportunities, but also challenges that you are facing in your own roles. Before we get there, though, we always like to start with a check-in. The number was too big to all unmute ourselves and go around and do a proper introduction, but we would like to hear from you and how are you feeling today? So if you wouldn't mind just picking a number that resonates with you in terms of how you're feeling and just typing it in the chat. So I'm seeing what's coming in the chat and I see lots of 3s, so that's great. I see some 4s and 1s and 11 and 5s. It's really interesting. Again, this is to acknowledge that we're all in different spaces and places today as we are here together and just rest with our feelings and acknowledge where we're at. So thank you for participating. Before, again, we go further, we would like to acknowledge that this was a teamwork and a very collaborative research project. So even though it's only Joanne and I presenting here today with you, we were working with wonderful colleagues and it was a team effort. So Karen, Lara, Kieran, Kenna, and David were all part of the team. This is the research that was published and a lot of what we'll share today was based on this paper. At the same time, we do want to express our gratitude to the editors of this special edition, Yvonne and Diana, and all the participants who actually completed our questionnaire and contributed to the findings. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to move right on. We thought I mean, we mentioned earlier that we would like to hear from you and understand a little bit your context as well before we share some research findings. So our question is really, how is faculty development viewed or valued or recognized in your organization? And we will do this using the either the chat function or the raise hand function, and then we can unmute you, or feel free to unmute yourself. There are some sub-questions related to that question to help us brainstorm and get us started. So perhaps what would be helpful is to think about who participates in faculty development and who doesn't, and why. Who are your champions at your institutions and beyond? So who promotes and champions faculty development, and how? And how can the faculty development office in your setting continue to gain credibility, reputation, and added value to attain its goals? So those are some sub-questions to help us think about how is faculty development viewed and valued in our organization. So maybe we can give a couple of minutes, and I'm going to try and open the chat, and Joanne, maybe if you could monitor the chat as well and see what responses come in. And also, if you're courageous and feeling like you'd like to unmute yourself and share your thoughts with us, we'd love to hear from you. So I'll stop here and give everyone a couple of minutes just to think about their own context and how is faculty development viewed, valued, or recognized in your organization.
So we have one comment from a participant. It says, unfortunately, something you do on your own time, no dedicated time for this, but you're all interested and have to do it. It seems human resources and compensation don't support it, but the leaders of our programs know its benefits. And another comment, participants, a small cohort of the usual subjects, the same people attending regularly, and someone else has noted their agreement with that statement. Another one, but usually the same people participate make time for it, so the participants make time for it.
Very interesting. Thank you very much for those comments. I think that they. Oh, sorry, I moved too fast. What you said actually, it was part of our findings as well, the one around human resources and how do we have dedicated time and to actually do it well and engage meaningfully in faculty development rather than at the side of our desks. And probably going to make the assumption that you're probably a faculty member perhaps at your institution trying to I hear some echo. If I could please ask that you mute yourself. Thank you.
We have a couple other comments, Claudiana. Similar to the comment about the usual suspects, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. Similar to Teresa, we have a cohort of the usual subjects. Leadership often states they value education, but unfortunately do not support faculty development in education. And then another comment, organizationally valued by leadership who support and promote may not have the same levels of recognition and often requires people to do it off the side of their desks. Mm-hmm. Another person commenting, faculty development leads to achievement of mission vision of the organization. Another comment, mainly administrative staff and partly academic staff. I think they're but who participates.
Thank you for those comments and for contributing. It's really interesting because it was loud and clear from our research as well that people were struggling to engage the non-engaged. So how do we expand how do we expand our participant pool and our champions beyond what we're calling here the usual suspects, or what we call the friends of the faculty development, but we all mean the same thing. Those who are always the ones who promote, amplify our work and champion it in different ways.
Yeah. And someone's echoing that, Claudiana. Champions, a small number, too few, scattered across multiple levels, program, department, institutional, and national levels.
Thank you. Please keep those comments coming. I think we'll move on to the rest of our session, but feel free to keep typing in the chat, and we'll, like I said, would love to hear from your context. And maybe I can give one last opportunity to anyone who would like to unmute and just talk about their own context and how it's being viewed or valued in their organization.
So one more comment. Unfortunately, everyone participates, but on an individual basis, minimal centralization. It's a new concept being championed by me, i.e. the person who's posting. Getting the dean or provost interested is the way forward.
Absolutely, and you need that support. You need the leadership to walk alongside you and alongside us in everything that we do in faculty development, and again, amplify the good work that is being done in faculty development. Thank you very much. Excellent comments. We really appreciated you sharing some of your insights here. Joanne, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little bit about what we did.
So, as Claudiana mentioned, our project was a collaborative project that arose out of our discussions at meetings of our network of faculty development centers across Canada. Over the years, we've shared various experiences of both joy and frustrations related to our ability to deliver our programs and services that support excellence in teaching and education in our various schools. We saw ebbs and tides in program growth, expansion, and success. Over time, we came to believe we saw patterns in these ebbs and tides and commonality in the features across schools that impacted our programs. As we did our sort of annual check-in reports of programs, we felt that this was a prime opportunity to explore this pattern, the supposed patterns we were seeing, as a way to collectively understand what is happening and perhaps collaboratively develop strategies to improve our programs. We framed our shared problem of practice, as you see here, how do organizational factors constrain or enhance the capacity of faculty developers to fulfill their mandate. And that became essentially our research question. Because some of us were familiar with this framework, we chose Bolman and Deal's 4 frames theories as the lens to explore this problem, primarily because it allowed us to explore the interaction of faculty development and the organization in which we live from a number of perspectives. And we firmly believe that there were organizational factors at play that influenced our office's success. Bolman and Deal's theory itself allowed us to explore our context regardless of our differences in office size or organizational structures. In fact, having a broad range of different organizational structures only strengthened our findings. However, we do recognize that there are limitations that arise when you choose a theoretical framework with which to view your study. It's one way of seeing the results. So had we chosen a different framework, we likely would have surfaced different findings, probably equally important, as opposed to the ones we surfaced using Bolman and Deal. Despite this limitation, we felt that the Bolman and Deal framework was a good fit as it focuses on the organization functions from a variety of lenses, and Bolman and Deal call those frames, and it uses 4 of them, and they also use a metaphor to describe the frame to understand how things work and interact in the organization. And I'll explain each of these as they are critical to understanding our results. They suggest that organizations can be viewed from these 4 perspectives, and these perspectives gives the viewer an important insight into how an organization operates, attains its objectives, and interacts across units. They also helpfully provide a nice metaphor that helps us understand help us understand as users of the framework how to conceptualize each frame. Essentially, Bolman and Deal view organizations as machines, as extended families, as theaters or temples, or as jungles. And each of these four areas, again, they call them frames, have their own view of the organizational landscape, like a picture frame around a picture. Each has its focus, assumptions, and logic, and each captures only a slice of the organization. And on their own, they're incomplete. You actually have to use all four of them to fully understand and have a rich, complex view of the organization. The structural frame is rooted in that factory or machine metaphor. It kind of comes out of that Taylorian understanding of organizations or that sort of positivist view of research. It's really about how the structure of the organization, the task, the technology, the environment aligns with the organizational goals. And things like policies and rules and guidelines are the resources available to people in the organization to help them with that alignment. The human resource frame, with its metaphor of extended family, captures the symbiotic relationships between the organization and the people that work in the organization. So how the organization and individuals in it both get their needs met. And if you think of Argus, the father of organizational learning, this is what much of the frame of the human resource frame is bounded on. This frame pays attention to people and ensuring that individual needs are met while the organizational needs are met. The symbolic frame looks at how people come together to make meaning and create culture. So it's also a really important frame for which to view faculty development. The actions that arise in this frame are related to how organizations build faith, so faith in the organization itself, and share meaning. So these things are things like creating a shared vision, having relevant rituals and ceremonies, managing symbols, and how to infuse creativity and passion in our work. Finally, the political frame with its metaphor of a jungle looks at how competition for power and resources occurs where individuals form coalitions to advance their own agenda. The actions that relate to this are the concept of winning, which, you know, as a good, I shouldn't probably say this, as a good socialist kind of gets me a little bit worked up. But through bargaining, negotiations, coalitions, and champions, through setting agenda and managing conflict is how you win in this field. For us, it was important to understand all the four frames as we embarked on our research, because some of the meanings were less obvious and some of the meanings were very obvious. One of the frames we struggled with at times was the human resource frame, because people thought that that was the number of EFTs and all of those things that were in the unit. And it's really more about how do we be humanistic in our approach to working with our colleagues. So we spent a lot of time discussing the frames, and we use these frames to craft the questions on our survey. And Claudiana is going to now talk a little bit more about the methods we used in conducting our research.
Thank you. So we did use a questionnaire that was structured around those four frames and organized with that lens. The questionnaire had 6 quantitative questions and yes, 34. Sorry, do I hear a question or? Okay. It had 34 open-ended questions. We're glad in a way that we use the 6 quantitative questions because they enabled us to better understand the context and the huge variation that we found in terms of the scope, size of faculty development, mandate, mission, even though all our participants were in Canada. So even within the same country, there was that huge huge variability and fluidity in the work that was done and how it was done and by whom. So we distributed the survey to all 17 leaders of the medical schools in Canada through the AFMC, the Faculty Development Network, and 14 of those institutions responded. So one participant per institution. Again, we mentioned that the Bolman and Deal framework was the one that was used for conceptualizing the questionnaire, but also for analyzing our findings. I won't go into too much detail into the findings because I do know that the paper was shared with you.
Full day.
Oh, sorry. Could I please ask that whoever perhaps joined now to mute themselves? Thank you very much. I won't go into detail into the findings since you have the paper and you can read the key themes that emerged. But I do want to mention that you'll see there that we structured the findings around the symbolic, political, structural, and human resource frame. And what we found is that in each of those frames, there were striking constraining factors or enhancing factors that either really pose the barrier to the work of faculty developers or enhanced and improved the work and amplified the work that was done. So if we look at the symbolic frame, the theme that was quite evident from our analysis of the participants' responses was that a lack of identity as a faculty development seen as a constraining factor. And here we received responses such as people don't know who we are and what we do, and because we have changed so much, it's almost difficult to create a stable identity of who we are as a unit and what's our mandate and vision. And that proved to be problematic because if others couldn't articulate what is being done by the faculty development unit and the impact that it's having, it was found to be really a constraining factor in not having that solid and established identity. In the political frame, what emerged quite clearly was that developing more and more visibility was really an enhancing factor because it helped others recognize and be aware of a faculty development unit or a faculty development office. However, that didn't necessarily equate with obtaining more resources or being valued. So even though people were aware of the work that was being done in a faculty development center, it wasn't necessarily associated with putting more resources into that unit or necessarily seeing as a valued office. The structural frame, this was quite evident, and perhaps we should have mentioned it earlier, that our research was done during the pandemic. So some of that expanding scope of practice could have been as a result of the pandemic or not. Again, it was hard to pinpoint what led to the expansion of scope. And it wasn't our primarily research question, but it was very clear that the scope of praxis had expanded. And this was really seen as an enhancing factor and as something that could benefit faculty development units. However, where it really could be a constraining factor and can become quite difficult is if that expansion in scope is not associated with increased resources. So if there are no extra or additional resources put in to acknowledge all the additional work that is being done, then that could really limit both what can be done by faculty development units, but also the depth as to how we go about our current programming and initiatives. And the last frame, the human resources frame, I think I saw some of this come up in your responses as well in the chat. But it's really associated with this sense of instability that participants really associated or pinpointed to the change in leadership and uncertainty about human resources. So most institutions have had significant changes in leadership, and there was that internal uncertainty about how the staff will shift and in what way, and this really created this sense of instability, which was a constraining factor.
So when we thought about what this meant outside of our own context in Canada, Canada has a relatively few number of medical schools. We only have 17 medical schools, although I think one is in development. We really reflected, and thanks to our reviewers who really pushed us to reflect on what this might mean outside of our own context. So we drew three main implications of what this might mean for you as participants in this workshop and beyond. Is, well, the huge differences in mandates and activities were seen across our units. Some offices were single persons, where some offices were quite large. Some offices focused solely on teaching and learning, while others had mandates that included wellness and equity and professionalism, and in one case, even performance management of faculty across their medical school. All generally seem to link their mandate to their local context and their institutional structures. And that alignment with faculty development, with the institutional priorities and the institutional needs, can really guide faculty developers in their work. And we shouldn't, one of the things we talked about in our group is we really shouldn't look at what's happening, say, in my office in Winnipeg and compare it to what's happening in Claudiana's office in Kingston, because we have different needs, we have different priorities, and we have to align what we do with what's happening locally. And although intuitively that made sense to everybody when we said it, it was nice to see that show up in our research. And that not only did we have to align with the local needs and priorities, we had to anticipate what was coming. So it was really important to be connected and in community with our faculty, our teachers, and our institutional leaders, and be at those tables. So we've talked a lot about it in our group, about being at the curriculum table to find out what's happening. What are the challenges that the curriculum's facing? What are the students saying? What are the things that are happening in the medical education world or the health professions education world writ large that are gonna come and be priorities as we move forward. However, this alignment with needs often leads to an expansion in scope. So we can't drop, we have some core stuff around teaching and learning. We take on new roles around equity, diversity, and inclusion that are important. We take new roles around professionalism. We take new roles around wellness. And all of a sudden we have all of these new roles. And it doesn't often lead to an increase in value, an increase in resources. And we have to make sure that as we expand our scope, we pay attention to those social factors, such as how is our work understood? How do we ensure that what we do is recognized so that we're visible in the work? We're visible when the accreditors come and your school, in those schools that have an external accreditation process, gets a fabulous accreditation. How is faculty development recognized in that as we prepare people to be excellent teachers or to implement a new curriculum? And then all of those things that understood, recognized, and valued leads to those decisions about how faculty development is resourced. Those are all in that political frame. So we have to think about, as we anticipate and ensure we align with those priorities and needs and our scope expands, we have to be able to do this other work that ensures our work is understood, recognized, valued, and resourced in the institution. And as a community, one of the ways we thought we could leverage this research that we've done to foster this discussion is to begin the reflexive process today. And we're going to walk you through what we're hoping to do in breakout rooms right now.
So here we come to the point where you will have a chance to share with your colleagues here what are some of the challenges that you are facing within your organization and your institution, and as a group making a decision on one of those challenges, one faculty development related challenge. And identifying which of the frame or frames, it could fall under more than one frame, you think it aligns with and why. But let's not stop there. Let's move to the sort of the appreciative inquiry approach and see what strategies could you use to address the challenge you identified from the viewpoint of all four frames. So if we look at the four frames, what are some of the strategies in the human resource frame, in the symbolic and in the other two frames that you could be using to address or mitigate this challenge. At this point, we're hoping to open up some breakout sessions. We'll give everyone about 12 minutes or so. Don't worry, you'll receive a warning up there how many minutes left. And we ask that if you could please take a screenshot of the questions that are here, and we'll also type the questions in the chat. So you have them there. If you would rather do it as an individual activity, please still join the group, but keep your camera turned off and your mic turned off. That will signal your participants in the group that you would like to conduct this on your own. But please, regardless, join your group that you've been assigned on, and then we'll come back together and regroup as a team and debrief. Joanne, we had an example. Did you want to walk through the example so that we have a better sense of what we're asking of our participants? So I'll move to the next slide.
So here's an example, and we just, when there's no right answer first in each of the frames, it's just your own thoughts and ideas around what this might be. So I thought for myself, one of the things that I wanted to do locally was look at how do I promote a sense in my faculty that faculty development is valuable and is something that should be both funded and participated in. And then I thought, what could I do to increase people's scene of faculty development of value? So I looked at the symbolic frame and thought about how do I create a shared meaning and vision around faculty development. Remember, this is the theater or the temple, depending on how you see symbols, ceremonies, and rituals, and drama. So some words around faculty development, doing some creative communication to share some meaning around what faculty development is and how it's effective. Some shared stories about faculty development successes, and then something that my own unit probably hasn't been as good at is publishing or doing some scholarship of teaching and learning around that symbolic to create those symbols that are important in our institutions around academia. So you can look at each of those frames, and those are just things I was thinking about in my own setting that I needed to think about. And you can see FD policy, identified in policy around teaching and learning, and identified in job descriptions. And I noted in one of the chat comments they were talking about, it should be part of the performance review or performance appraisal system, that faculty development is a requirement. Faculty development, part of the faculty feedback system. So again, that's a policy issue. So you could probably identify other ones rather than the ones that I've put in there for your own setting. You may already have these in place. I know some places have a faculty development award. I think University of Toronto in Canada has a Helen Batty Award of Excellence in Faculty Development that they've been giving out for, I don't know how many years. I know Karen's and on the call from our research team, and she probably knows how many years that award's been in place, but it's been a while.
That's great. Thanks, Joanne. So I'm going to stop sharing, and Diane, I'm going to recruit your help to put participants in groups of 7. And we're going to take only 10 minutes right now, because we do have a few other things that we would like to discuss, and also leave some room for questions. So if I can please ask for your help, and give everyone 10 minutes. And we'll post the questions in the chat. Welcome back, everyone. I know it tends to feel awkward as people disappear and then coming back in. So thank you for your patience with putting people in and out of groups. I know it's never enough time to address all the challenges we face in faculty development, but I hope you got started to a good conversation. We don't have a lot of time for a debrief as we anticipated, but we'd like to hear maybe from 1 or 2 groups and something that you'd like to share with all participants. So and again, it doesn't need to be a spokesperson, but if there are 1 or 2 things that resonated with you, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
So this is Shubha. I don't mind speaking up on behalf of our group.
Awesome.
So the challenge we came up with was one we struggle with all the time: valuing, rewarding, and recognizing teachers, educators. That was our challenge. And part of it was, we thought it hit the symbolic frame, which is leadership. The institutional leadership thinks teaching happens on your own time and does not need to be acknowledged. Everyone's smiling. Even the photos are smiling. Okay, so that was a challenge. And strategies, we hit 3 of the 4 frames. And we said structural, we should include teachers and educators at all levels in important committees, particularly ones making educational decisions. And in terms of human resources, not only teachers, but then we include our learners as well, and support staff to support the teachers. Not, oh, go and learn about Zoom and go and learn about Blackboard, but actual support staff, instructional design, IT and stuff. And symbolic, provide autonomy to the teachers, don't micromanage them, but autonomy has to be balanced with appropriate guidance. And the biggest thing was obvious and overt rewards, especially in career policies and promotion. That's it.
Thank you very much. And again,
Fabulous.
all the nodding and the smiling, because I think it resonated with most people in the call, what you're saying. So thank you for that. It may be one more comment, and then we can.
Claudiana, there was a post in the chat.
Oh, okay, great.
A group talked about faculty development's identity and how that could be promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And their strategies were asking staff members from faculty to join the faculty development group as teachers, and also showing evidence for what we do. So evidence-based faculty development. And I think I would add to that, and publishing evidence around the effectiveness of faculty development. And also noted that this is what's called preaching to the choir. Yeah, well, sometimes that's our faculty development workshops as well, as we're preaching to the choir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that comment. Really, really good challenge around identity. And as you noticed as well, it was a very prominent theme in our findings, the identity and how do we increase that faculty development identity. Joanne, do you want to maybe key points to summarize, and then we can leave a few minutes for Q&A, because I'm mindful of the time.
Okay, so one of the things that I think the message that we'd like to leave this workshop with is, we know education works, and faculty development is just a type of education. Faculty development in our national organizations is often cited strategy for any educational change. It's with our physician licensing bodies, it's with our physician regulatory bodies, it's with our medical educational national groups. They say faculty development is critical to this challenge or this change. However, at the institutional level, support, faculty buy-in, and institutional cultures sometimes, maybe even often, doesn't align with this perceived view as faculty development as critical to educational change. So this whole situation, this context that we find ourselves in, was really the driver for our study. We've had many national reports that come out and say and identify as the top thing faculty development must happen to support this. And our own level, we don't see any extra resources for people or even acknowledgement of the need for it. So I think that remains a problem, at least in the Canadian context. We know education works, faculty development works, but we can't seem to get past the rhetoric into the actual visible and concrete support for it in our context. So I think we need, and I think our research team would say this, not just me, we need to continue to explore our practice. We need to use different lenses, not just Bolman and Deal, to explore these problems that we experience in faculty development practice. And this will reveal some insights about what we need to do to address these challenges, and perhaps some really creative or lateral thinking strategies that can address these problems. And we use Bolman and Deal, but it's really only one lens.
Mm-hmm. And really, I mean, the takeaway and the reflection that we want to leave you with is think about those challenges that you discussed as a group and prioritize as a group here today, but also others that didn't make it to the discussion conversation. And think about one colleague that you'd like to reach out to, and they can be anyone within your institution, within the AMI network, or within our research team who embarked on this work. One resource that you'd like to access and find out more about, and one question which goes back to the problem of practice that you'd like to explore. And I'm going to stop sharing at this point, and we only have, unfortunately, 3 minutes for questions, but I'm sure we can put our emails on the chat, and you know how to find us as well. And maybe I can speak for everyone within the research team. We're more than happy to hear from you, and I think everyone else in the research team who embarked on this research is happy as well. So there are ways to connect with us if you have comments or insights and questions. If there are any burning questions right now, we do have 2 minutes left. Some good comments in the chat. Engaging other organizations that represent health professionals out in practice that have interest in participating in faculty development. Absolutely. That's another strategy. Okay, we don't want to keep anyone beyond the hour that was allocated to this session. I know we're all stretched thin as we were articulating one of the themes, our expanding scope of practice. So we're quite mindful of that, but we'd like to thank you very much. It is morning where I am. It's the most wonderful way for me to start my day. So thank you for engaging, and thank you for participating. And we're very, very, very pleased and lucky to learn from you and with you this morning. Joanne, any comments?
Well, we have one question in the chat. Well, I have two. A person would like a look at our questionnaire, and I can't remember if we posted it in the appendixes on medical teacher, but if not, we'll get your email from Diana, who's our support today. She's identified as Amy at Dundee. And then Patricia O'Sullivan's asking us if we had issues with the framework. Did you find issues where the framework was not helpful? I think the framework looks at components of the organization from a very conceptual lens, and I'm not sure conceptual is the right word, but it doesn't look at some of the concrete structures that the units had. So it doesn't look at staffing ratios or budget ratios or anything like that. It looks at whether or not there are policies or procedures or whether or not the resources that you have align with the organization's need. It doesn't ask questions about sufficiency or I don't know. So that there were those pieces that we really struggle with, that this really wasn't about the number of EFTs or the staffing levels. Equivalent for full-time or full-time equivalence is what EFT means. It really looks at it from a conceptual level. And I know Karen's here from our research team, and Claudia, and I don't know if you want to add anything from your perspective about where Bolman and Deals didn't serve us well and where we struggled with the frame. Some of it was understanding the nuances of it. Wasn't looking at the human resources. It was looking at the alignment of the organization with the individual and the individual with the organization.
I think you captured it quite well, because there were certainly things that did not fit in the framework. And this is why throughout the session today, you heard us repeat perhaps more than once that this is one of the lenses that helped us in a way compartmentalize and categorize what we're noticing and what came from the participants. However, when it comes down to what does it look like in practice and how do we operationalize it, I think we need to dig a little bit further and use other frames of reference. I'm going to end here and be mindful of everyone's time. Thank you so much, everyone. We really enjoyed being with you this hour today, and take good care of yourselves and stay well.